Tyler from Aspire Sports, and who are some guys that you should be buying and selling for week 4 of the fantasy football season. I'm going to give you some of my top guys in this video. So I make new content like this every single day, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, if you enjoy this video at any time, make sure you smash that like button for me. Really appreciate it. Helps grow the channel. So with that being said, let's get into the video. The first buy for me is going to be Allen Robinson. I also have David Montgomery on here too, just because I want to talk about both of them. I don't want to separate them just because I don't want to try to sell you in 2 different takes on Bears players. I'm just going to do it in one. So we have Allen Robinson and David Montgomery. I'll start with Allen Robinson first and why I believe you should be buying into him. First, Justin Fields, he played horribly. Now, really, this whole offense played bad. Their offensive line was awful. I watched this game live, and really, Jason Peters was getting absolutely annihilated on the edge. Along with both their tackles, they were blitzing, and the offensive line couldn't pick up anything. But also, at times, when Justin Fields did have time, he was just holding onto the ball way too long. The receivers weren't getting open at times, and also Justin Fields wasn't making the right read quick enough. So there's not a whole lot to really like with this offense this past weekend. Now, I will say Cleveland's one of the better defenses up front, especially up front in the league. So that's one thing that at least the Bears have something going for them last weekend. Now, when you put up 47 total offensive yards in a full game of football, that's brutal. And then you also give up 9 sacks. But they have a great bounce back game here against Detroit that they should get some offense going, hopefully. Now, hopefully, Nagy doesn't go to Nick Foles and he just keeps playing Justin Fields. Justin Fields should get better as the season progresses. The first game, his first start, was really not good, but we get Detroit. This should be a bounce-back matchup for this team as a whole. Allen Robinson this past weekend with Justin Fields was seeing a 30% target share. Right now in this offense, he's seeing over 30% of the air yards in this offense. His ADOT is pretty low. I believe it's at 6.8, which is low for a wide receiver, but he's been a guy that he's more of a possession type of guy where he wins with route running and body positioning. So that's good for Allen Robinson. I believe better days are going to be ahead for him. He's way too talented of a wide receiver. And last year, he was a top 10 guy with Nick Foles, Mitch Trubisky. I think things will get better from here on out. It's been brutal if you've had him so far, but he's definitely a guy that I've received a lot of questions about. Should they keep him? Should they try to trade him? And I think right now would be a great buy low opportunity for a guy that just hasn't really produced a whole lot, but everything is checking out for Allen Robinson. It's only a matter of time until he produces numbers. Then with David Montgomery, that we've seen him back-to-back weeks play basically on 80% of the snaps, which is great because week 1, we saw Damian Williams involved a little bit in this offense. But right now, David Montgomery is running routes, which is great. We want our running backs to run routes. He's playing majority of the snaps, which is also great, and seeing majority of the RB touches in this backfield, which is great. All the 3 boxes that you need to cross off, you can check off for David Montgomery. It's only a matter of time, hopefully this upcoming weekend, that this offense really gets on track. So these are 2 guys that are playing a bunch, are seeing a lot of opportunity. Just the fantasy points aren't coming because this offense doesn't look good. But this offense, once again, should get better this upcoming week against Detroit. So right now, I would try to buy low on both of them. I know that they're going to be harder targets to try to acquire because not a lot of people want to give up a running back. But I would go out, try to get these guys, see what the managers want for both of them. David Montgomery and Allen Robinson. My first sell high is going to be Antonio Gibson. And honestly, right now, this may not be the most popular opinion, but right now, I honestly would rather have James Robinson over Antonio Gibson. And that may sound crazy, but let me tell you why. The key stat that I'm going to look at is routes ran for the running back position. Right now, to me, mixed in with a couple other stats, it's a pretty good indicator of who's scoring fantasy points. So I'm going to look at routes ran right now. Your top 5 running backs in routes ran. We have Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, James Robinson, Austin Eckler, Ezekiel Elliott. Then coming at 6, we have Saquon Barkley. So what do 4 of the top 5 guys in routes ran have in common? They're top 10 running backs in PPR scoring leagues right now. So right now, and I've said this basically all offseason, is that guys who get receptions are much more valuable than guys who run the ball. We want guys who are running routes, guys who are receiving work, are seeing receiving work in the passing game. Those are the guys that you want in fantasy football. Currently, you have a guy, Antonio Gibson, who ranks 32nd at the running back position in routes ran. He's just not seeing the production there. Not even seeing the production, but seeing the opportunity. Routes ran leads to opportunities. Opportunities lead to targets. Targets lead to receptions, and receptions lead to points in your PPR leagues. So we want those guys. And right now, Antonio Gibson just isn't doing that. You have J.D. McKissic, who's running more routes than him right now, which it's very frustrating because Antonio Gibson is, in my opinion, a far superior than J.D. McKissic in terms of football talent. He is. And I get it. J.D. McKissic is a pretty solid receiving back, but Antonio Gibson, I believe, can be a very good receiving back if given the opportunity. But unfortunately, he hasn't been. This team is very content. So that's why, for me, Antonio Gibson is a sell high guy. He's just not seeing routes in the receiving game right now, which is concerning. This upcoming week, he gets Atlanta, where honestly, he should probably have a solid week this upcoming week. And then you have a lot of games where this team should be playing behind, because right now this defense does not look very good either. This defense doesn't look as good as advertised heading into the season. So there's a lot of concerns for me right now with with Antonio Gibson. And I love his talent. And if he were able to see more receptions, more work in the receiving game, I would absolutely love him. And I think he has RB1 potential. But right now, I view him as a mid RB2. And I would try to sell high. If you can't this week, next week would be a really good opportunity because he should have a good week. And then I would try to sell high and get a guy who's involved in the passing game, involved in the offense a lot more than Antonio Gibson right now. So may not be the most popular take, but that's just how I feel about Antonio Gibson. And it's very frustrating because, once again, love his talent. So Antonio Gibson is my first sell high. The next guy on this list is going to be James Robinson. He's a buy for me right now. Now, not so much like a buy low, just a buy, because I've received a lot of questions about James Robinson. A lot of people seem that they think they should sell high on him. Right now, to me, I would just buy him. I know it's not a buy low opportunity. Last week he was in this video. I said buy low on him. So if you didn't get him, I still think right now is a pretty good opportunity to get James Robinson. James Robinson right now for me is a high-end RB2, back-end RB1 for the rest of the season. And a large part has to do with his receiving role. Currently, he looks like this team's receiving back, which Travis Etienne was likely going to be this team's receiving back, which Travis Etienne would have had a lot of value this season. But right now, it's James Robinson. And James Robinson is also seeing the touches, the rushing attempts as well. So you want that guy on your team. He's currently playing around like 64-65% of the team snaps, which is great. We want our running backs in that range. He's also running, like I said, the third most routes at the running back position, tied with Austin Eckler, which is fantastic. Once again, just saw his second 6-target game. Second 6-target game. This offense should be bad. Well, this defense should be bad. This offense should get better as the season progresses. They're going to be on a lot of passing game scripts this season. So expect James Robinson to continue to put up solid fantasy points week in and week out in your PPR leagues. Once again, I just don't think people are valuing him right now as a high-end RB2, a back-end RB1. So that's what I would try to go and get him as. Get him this week because this is your last opportunity to try to buy in. He has a lot of easy games coming up. So James Robinson is the next guy on the list. The next sell high candidate for me is going to be Adam Thielen. And he was on this list last week, and he once again scored a touchdown. And I'm going to continue to put him on this list until the touchdowns stop coming. And here's why. He has 4 red zone targets this season and 4 touchdowns. 4 red zone targets, 4 touchdowns. It's just, unless this is the greatest red zone connection in NFL history between him and Kirk Cousins, the wheels are bound to fall off. And once you look at all the other stats for him, other than his touchdowns, it's just not top tier numbers. He's not going to be able to put up wide receiver 1 numbers, really high end wide receiver 2 numbers. It's going to be more back end wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 numbers once the touchdowns stop coming. And here's why, is that you currently have him right now at 80th amongst wide receivers in ADOT. ADOT is averaged at the target. He's currently at 6.8, which really he's just running short routes right now. Also, his air yards right now, his air yard share is 53rd amongst wide receivers, which is really low as well. His target share right now is in the low 20s too. So it's just a lot of things aren't adding up because he's just not the alpha wide receiver. Justin Jefferson is the alpha wide receiver. So once the touchdowns stop coming, really everything else is going to start to fall apart for Adam Thielen. And that's why I would try to sell on him while he's still scoring these touchdowns. He has another okay matchup and really will have a good one against Detroit coming up here soon. And then after that, it gets a little bit tougher for a while there. There's a good stretch. So I would try to sell him before the wheels start to fall off and the touchdowns stop coming. So Adam Thielen for me is still a sell high. Probably next week he's going to score a touchdown and it'll be on the list again, but he's going to continue being on the list until the touchdowns stop coming. So Adam Thielen is my second sell high. My next buy low candidate is going to be Elijah Mitchell, and I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible because there's a lot to digest. If we really look at what this team has done this offseason, what this team has done during the season with the running back position, to me, it's easy to see that Elijah Mitchell is going to be this team's starting running back once he comes back. And here's why. We have Jeff Wilson, first running back, get hurt. He's put on the PUP list, and he's not going to return. You have Kyle Shanahan the other day, well, last week or so, say that he doesn't think that you're going to have Jeff Wilson come back until November. So you're looking at November. The earliest game is going to be week 9 in November. And he said in the same quote, though, he did say he could possibly come back a little bit earlier or possibly even later than that. So I think it's safe to say, like right now, we'll project him coming back at week 9 right now. Week 9 is what we're looking at, early November. So Jeff Wilson gets hurt. Then we have, this team, obviously, they draft Elijah Mitchell. They have Trey Sermon in this backfield. Week 1, Trey Sermon is a healthy scratch in this game, which was very surprising. And what happens in this game, we know we have Raheem Mostert get hurt. He's out for season. Elijah Mitchell handles basically all the touches in this backfield. Heading into week 2 then, Elijah Mitchell gets the nod. And week 2 handles majority of the touches once again in the backfield. He ends up getting hurt. You have JaMycal Hasty get hurt. Trey Sermon get hurt. All the running backs are now officially hurt for San Francisco. We have JaMycal Hasty go on IR with a high ankle sprain. He's going to be out for at least 2 more weeks, but high ankle sprains are tricky. He could be out for much longer than that. We don't truly know what the severity is until, he's able to return for this offense. So, leading into week 3, we have JaMycal Hasty go on IR. Elijah Mitchell can't play. So now Trey Sermon gets to start at the running back position. This is his opportunity to show that he can be the guy. What happens? We have him play 41 snaps to Kyle Juszczyk's 48 snaps. So he gets outsnapped by fullback Kyle Juszczyk. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about Kyle Juszczyk. He's honestly maybe the best fullback in the game, one of the best fullbacks in the game, but he gets outsnapped by Kyle Juszczyk. You have Kyle Juszczyk get 9 touches to Trey Sermon's 12. Does that scream confidence to you? To me, it does not. And I know, and I get it. Some people will say, well, he was a 3rd-round draft pick. This team traded up for him. Do teams sometimes make mistakes in their draft picks? If you go back and look at each and every single year, draft picks, rounds 1 through 7, look at teams who are drafting guys, like what kind of guys in round 1. Do teams make mistakes? Certainly. Could Trey Sermon possibly be a mistake that this team made, and then they drafted Elijah Mitchell, a player that they just think is better than Trey Sermon? That can certainly happen. So that's what I think is going to happen when Elijah Mitchell is healthy. I believe he's going to go back into that starting role. And as long as he looks good and earns Kyle Shanahan's trust, there could be a chance that he ends up just being the starting running back all season long. All season long. And I know that may seem crazy to some people because Trey Sermon, once again, was a 3rd-round draft pick. But nothing screams to me that this team is confident in Trey Sermon whatsoever. Maybe when Jeff Wilson comes back, he's a little bit more involved, but this has also been a guy that in college was injury prone. Missed 7 games. This is one of the biggest knocks on him coming out of college. He missed 7 games due to 3 different injuries in 3 years in college. In the pros, we saw him. He came out in 2018. Last year, he had a calf strain, high ankle sprain. He's already torn his meniscus. Like, this guy has had trouble staying healthy as well. So to me, as long as Elijah Mitchell, even if he doesn't come back this week, I'm still going to buy low on Elijah Mitchell because even if he doesn't play this week, his value is going to be even lower and you can really get him. Teams are probably even considering dropping him because they just spent so much fab bucks on him, wasted the waiver priority, they feel like. So I would go out, get Elijah Mitchell. His value is never going to be lower. If this is maybe next week, if he doesn't play, then his value will be lower. But this is a team that loves to run the football, and I believe that they believe in Elijah Mitchell to be their starting running back. So Elijah Mitchell is a buy low for me. The next sell high guy for me is going to be Ja'Marr Chase. And I really hate to say this one because I do think Ja'Marr Chase is super talented, and if some things continue to go right for him, he can definitely keep providing solid fantasy value. But right now, if we really look at it, one thing that I really do like about him is his air yards and really how he's looked so far. He does look pretty legit. And his air yards right now are amongst the top in the NFL. His air yard share But if we look at things a little bit more, currently he has 11 targets and 4 touchdowns. That's just, it's not going to continue at that rate. He needs to really see his target share go up. And he also, his 4 touchdowns, it's coming off of 1 red zone target. So these have been deeper targets, deeper touchdowns for him that just, they're not likely to continue. His average yard per reception is really high. It's just, to me, it reminds me of DK Metcalf last year, where it was obvious, now largely in part due to Russell Wilson not playing as well, but you had DK Metcalf was going to slowly come back down to earth, and I think that's what's going to happen with Ja'Marr Chase, unless we see a big jump in targets. Now, when T. Higgins was there, T. Higgins was leading this team in target share with right around 25%. Next was Tyler Boyd, and last out of the big three, these 3 wide receivers, was Ja'Marr Chase, who is right around 18%. So if that doesn't go up throughout the season, which it certainly can, he's a rookie, and this is only his 3rd game, so it can certainly go up. But if it doesn't go up significantly, then I just view him having a really hard time being a wide receiver 1. And right now, that's where he is. He's a wide receiver 1 in fantasy football, and I think that you can get solid value for him if you try to trade him. Now, it might be a little bit hard because some people are going to remember, oh, back in training camp, he was struggling to catch the ball. Yeah. So it might be a little bit hard to try to sell, but he'd be somebody that is like the perfect definition of sell high right now. The production just is going to fall off, and unless he starts to see those targets, he's going to be really hit or miss every single week, and it's going to be really frustrating to have Ja'Marr Chase. So I would try to sell high right now on him, possibly even next week, because if T. Higgins doesn't play this week, he should have a really good game against Jacksonville, and then that's a really good time to sell high. So the last sell high for me is going to be Ja'Marr Chase. The last buy for me is going to be a tight end, and it's going to be Mike Gesicki. And you know, if you've been listening to me since the summertime, I've been a big fan of Mike Gesicki heading into the season. And here's why. If we look at Mike Gesicki, and if I asked you who's the best athlete at the tight end position, you might say Travis Kelce, even though he's not, but George Kittle would be one of them, and Kyle Pitts should really be the other. So it should be those 2 guys. And those 2 guys, don't get me wrong, are phenomenal athletes at the tight end position. But Mike Gesicki is actually a better athlete than both those guys. Currently at Spark, his workout metrics, a Spark athlete, he was in the 98th percentile at the tight end position. The other 2 guys were right around 90%. So they're still really good athletes, don't get me wrong, but Mike Gesicki is an absolute freak of nature at the tight end position. His arm length, his 40 time, his weight, height, his burst score, his catch radius are all off the charts, okay? So this is one of the best athletes at the tight end position. And what happened in week 1 was absolutely criminal, where he only played 33% of the snaps. But if we look at everything else, currently he's first amongst all tight ends in slot percentage, where he's playing his snaps out of the slot. He's first amongst all tight ends. He's 3rd amongst all tight ends in air yards. So, and that's also really, considering, you know, week 1, he really didn't do a whole lot and the stats were way down. So to have those so far is great. And he's coming off of a 12 target week, 10 receptions. So he may not be like the best buy low, but there's still a lot of people out there that aren't fully believing in Mike Gesicki because of his week 1 performance. And it's only going to get better from here on out. He honestly has all the tools to be a top 5 tight end in the NFL. And if his production, his usage continues to grow week in and week out, I firmly believe he'll be a top 10 tight end for the rest of the season. Can be more than that if his usage continues to grow at the rate that it's continuing to grow. So I think he's a great buy low candidate. I think that you can get him really cheap. He's probably honestly has been dropped and another team picked him up, even though they may have a second tight end that's also really good. So me personally, I would try to go out and get Mike Gesicki right now. So he's the last buy low candidate. So if you enjoy this content, make sure you smash that like button for me. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching and have a great day.